Hello friends, it's Luke the Gamer Dude. Today in Diablo 2 Resurrected, I want to talk about affixes, specifically defensive affixes. But not just talk about them, I want to rank them. I want to judge each defensive affix based on the tier system. What's great to have and what's not? Let's go find out. First off, what are defensive affixes? Well, they are the affixes which increase your defense. Things like enhanced defense on armor, blocking perks, resistances, or hit recovery to name a few. The ranking criteria here is pretty simple. Each defensive affix will be judged by how well it keeps you alive and in the fight. Now let's run through the rankings. S tier are the must-have GG affixes. A tier are great to have and make notable difference in playstyle. B tier are good affixes overall, but you can function without them. C tier are helpful affixes, but are overshadowed by others. And D tier are barely noticeable or not helpful much at all. There are 23 defensive affixes to rank and judge, so let's jump into it. Alright, here we have our ranking chart, and underneath, we have our defensive affixes. And we'll kick the whole thing off with All Res. It adds a flat number amount of resistance to all your resistances, including fire, lightning, cold, and poison. Elemental damage will absolutely wreck you, and adding resistance to not just one, but all four is amazing. We start with an S tier. Fire Res. Fire damage is everywhere and can reach fairly high damage numbers. I'd say fire damage is one of the more important resistances to have. A tier. Lightning Res. Lightning damage has the highest possible max damage of all elements, and multiple shots can destroy you out of nowhere. Lightning is probably the most important resistance to have. So this one is S tier. Cold Res. Cold damage doesn't have the highest numbers, but cold effects can be detrimental. Cold Res slightly decreases the amount of time you are chilled as well, but only slightly. Cold can be annoying, but aside from on-death frost novas from cold enchanted enemies, it's not too dangerous. I'll say B tier. Poison Res. Poison damage isn't common, but high poison damage can drop your health fast. Merc's health does not stop at 1 HP either, it kills the Merc. I'm a little torn here, as Poison Res is a lifesaver when you need it, but you don't need it often. I'll split the difference here and put Poison Res in B tier. Magic Resistance. There is no character stat for Magic Res, and magic damage is pretty rare to come across, primarily coming from skeleton archers. There are much more important affixes out there, so Magic Res can be our first D tier. Plus Defense. Adds a flat number amount of defense to your armor. Flat numbers are generally great for low tier armors, potentially adding more than a percentage would, but are lacking for high armor values. It's helpful, but not the best out there. B tier. Percent Enhanced Defense. Adds a percentage of the armor's value to the armor's defense. More defense means enemies will hit you less often, which means you stay alive longer. Not all characters use defense, but the ones who do really benefit from it. A tier. Defense vs melee. Adds additional defense versus melee enemies. Numbers usually aren't very high and only appears on a few select items. By the time you get those items, the small amount added is likely negligible in comparison to the default armor value. Defense vs melee is D tier. Defense vs missile. Adds additional defense versus missile enemies. Missiles can hit anyone and damage can stack fast. Adding extra defense for them to miss you is great. Note this only applies to regular arrows. Elemental missile attacks are unaffected. But the defense numbers can be pretty solid, so I'll jump defense vs missile up to B tier. Block Chance. Increases the chance you will block with a shield. Shields block most monster attacks including melee, physical missiles, fire arrows, suicide exploders, and enchant explosions. Blocking can absolutely save your life. However, block lock can get you killed. This is where you continuously enter blocking animation, blocking your movements or attacks until the block is finished. Very dangerous when surrounded. Blocking is mostly great, but can produce unintended consequences, keeping it out of S, so it goes to A tier. Faster block rate. Block rate is your block animation speed. Increasing it increases how fast you recover, mitigating block lock. It's a great amplifier for blocking, so I'll put it with block chance in A tier. Hit recovery. When you are hit by an enemy, you enter an animation showing you were struck. Getting hit locked, similar to block lock, in mobs can be detrimental. Hit recovery speeds up that animation. The drawback here are frame rate breakpoints, requiring a specific threshold to reach the next speed of animation. For example, 30 FHR on gear is the same animation speed as 20 FHR. It's helpful, but doesn't make the biggest differences long game. E tier. Damage reduced by flat number. It reduces the physical damage by enemies by said number. The numbers are generally low N, but stacking numbers of 3, 5, or 10 can produce some pretty immortal results. It is A tier. Damage reduced by percentage. Same as previous, but uses a percentage instead of a flat number. Percentages scale much better than flat numbers at higher levels, but may leave you hanging at lower levels. 10% DR from an enemy that does 10 damage won't help much, but from a 100 or 200 damage hit can be significant, especially when stacking. Percent damage reduction is S tier. Magic damage reduced by. But magic in this case applies to fire, cold, lightning, and magic damage, and functions the same as physical damage reduction. Numbers are generally lower end, but same as regular damage reduction, magic damage reduction can stack fairly well. A tier. Elemental Absorb. Absorbing damage to heal yourself is fantastic. You will reduce incoming damage equal to the absorbed number while healing yourself for the amount of damage reduced. No surprise here, Elemental Absorb is S tier. Poison length reduction. Again, poison isn't everywhere, but when you come across it, it can nuke you. Max reduction removes poison within a few seconds, though do note in Hell mode you have an automatic minus 100% poison reduction. So in Hell, you'll need plus 175% reduction to get the full effect. It is helpful, but there are other alternatives like poison res or life regen. Poison length reduction goes to C tier. Half freeze duration. It halves the duration you are chilled. The effect does not stack with other half freeze items, but does stack with cold res, essentially decreasing cold duration up to 1/40th its original length. It's nice to have, but there is a much better option. Half freeze is B tier. Cannot be frozen. Completely negates all cold effects from all sources on your character aside from Holy Freeze and Decrepify Curse. Granted, not damage. Cold effects are absolutely detrimental to melee characters, and nullifying cold cannot be understated. Cannot be frozen is S tier. Percent damage taken goes to mana. Primarily used with mana heavy melees and can be useful until you find leeching. An attack doing 20 damage with 20% taken means you receive plus 4 mana per hit on you, which definitely adds up during combat scenarios and scales with the level enemies you face. The only drawback is you need to take damage, and leeching mana is much better. But percent damage taken is good enough for a B tier. Attacker takes damage. It can be very handy for melees in normal mode, particularly versus mobs. Note enemies do not need to land their strikes to take damage. Normal enemies with a health range of 50 to 70, taking damage numbers of 8 to 10 can be effective, but falls off by Nightmare, where Sand Raiders in normal have health ranges of 60 to 90, while in Nightmare they have between 1,000 and 1,400. Attacker takes damage will not function for very long. It is D tier. Attacker takes lightning damage. Very much the same as previous, however, the numbers here are even lower than on Attacker takes damage. The highest you can find is 27 on Stormspire. So we end the entire shebang in a D tier. So there we are. All defensive affixes. Ranked. What do you think? Did everything end up about where you thought? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Was anything overhyped? And did anything get snuffed? Don't forget to smash that like button. And remember to subscribe as more Diablo 2 analytics and gameplay is incoming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.